Thanks for joining us this week on The Medley. I'm Blake Crash Priddle, and this week we are going to speak with a guest that has a very unique business. We'll be hearing from the editor-in-chief of Lunchmeat VHS, Josh Schafer. Lunchmeat VHS is a website and magazine that is dedicated to the appreciation, celebration, and preservation of VHS and the video store culture. There are still VHS enthusiasts out there, and who knows, maybe one of these days VHS will make a comeback the same way vinyl records did. Josh will tell us what his business has to offer and what he hopes to accomplish in the future. What is Lunchmeat VHS, and what makes your business unique?
Lunchmeat is a print publication. We release films on limited edition VHS tape. We have other publications like Stuck on VHS and Workout Rewind. Video stores still exist. Basically, it's just a hub for everything VHS video store culture. We do all kinds of stuff, but over the years, we've really expanded, and so it's been really fun, man.
Where did the inspiration for this business come from?
Ted Gilbert and I were working at a place called Relapse Records maybe like 15 years ago, and we were writing for the Resound catalog, which was the resource catalog for their mail order. And we wanted to do a publication of our own. And we were hanging out and just watching VHS tapes, and we realized there weren't a lot of people talking about these VHS tapes that were only available on tape. Like, they weren't available on DVD or anything like that. So we decided to put out a zine, just about these VHS tapes and review them and try to share them with people that cared about stuff like that. And that was about 15 years ago, and it's really grown a lot since then. So we continue to put out the magazine and start to put out VHS tapes, films that we license, and do apparel and do live events. So that's how it all came about. Yeah. So I guess what makes the business unique is that, it's focused on VHS and video store culture. Over the past several years, I think there's been a lot more entities that are focusing on VHS and video store culture. But several years ago, there weren't a lot of people focusing on VHS culture and, stuff like that. So I think that's what makes us, pretty unique in what we do.
What are some of the movies that you distributed on VHS? I had a look on your website, and they look almost like 80s horror films.
Yeah, there's a lot of 80s horror films on there. We've done The Last Blockbuster. We've done Scare Package. We do a lot. We actually do one like nearly every week. But we do horror movies. We do independent horror movies. We did a movie called Let Us In by my friend Anthony, and he's awesome. So Moran is his last name, and then we have so many. So I can just kind of run down the list. We did Tux and Fanny, The Old Ways, Bloodstick Psychosis, which is a really cool shot-on-video horror movie from Philly. Pizzagate Massacre, which is that satirical film about the actual Pizzagate conspiracy. Heavy Metal Parking Lot, which is a classic independent documentary about the Judas Priest show. If you're not familiar with that, it's really good. But we also do documentaries. Like I said, we did Last Blockbuster. We did Minding the Gap, which I was really happy to do. We did Filmage, which was the story of Descendants All.
Do you think that VHS could make a comeback kind of like vinyl records have in recent years?
Yeah, I think so. Vinyl records, it's a little different, right? Because I feel like it is a retro, nostalgic media. Vinyl is kind of hi-fi, and VHS is somewhat lo-fi. I think the biggest difference is, because I get asked this question, sometimes, and I think the biggest difference is there are people still making vinyl, right? There are plants that are still pressing vinyl. We still make VHS tapes, but all of the stock that we use is new old stock. So this is stock that was produced back in the day. Nobody's making VCRs anymore. That stopped about 7 years ago. Nobody makes videotape, to my knowledge, anymore. Nobody makes VHS cassettes, like the actual plastic housings. So, there's that. But I think that people, as far as collecting VHS and watching VHS and being interested in the history of it, yeah, I think it is making a comeback right now. I think we're in the midst of it. It's what I do, so I see it all the time, and all the changes and all of the mutations and just all of the things that are happening inside the VHS culture. It really makes you feel like that it is making a comeback right now, and that people are getting more interested by the day. and that people are getting more interested in firing up their VCR again.
Have you ever considered making original Lunchmeat VHS content?
Yeah, so we do that. So we did a thing called VCR Jack-O-Lantern, which is really fun. It's kind of like if you remember those, like, video fireplace kind of thing. It's kind of like that, but it's a Jack-O-Lantern, and it's like a Halloween vibe. It's really cool. But yeah, we are, as far as video, we are doing a few ideas right now for original content, and that's really something we really want to do, so we appreciate you asking that. We have a lot of talented people in the circle here at Lunchmeat, and we're looking forward to creating some original content. So, aside from the magazine and stuff like that, and I'm really excited to create some more original video content. Yeah.
So if you make original video content, does that mean that you would make the movie yourself or hire a studio to make the film?
Well, it could be both, right? Because there's all sorts of ways to make original content, right? Like you can make a film, you can make like a novelty kind of special interest tape, like what we did with VCR Jack-O-Lantern. But yeah, I mean, I would collaborate with artists, and play to their strengths, and I'll play to mine. And Ted's a great writer. I write and edit for the magazine. We have a guy named Jackie Lawrence who is a photographer, videographer, writer, who does a lot, and graphic designer who does a lot of work with us. He's a big part of it. So, and of course, if we needed more animations or another filmmaker, we could reach out and collaborate. I think collaboration is a lot of fun and key to getting some really quality, fun stuff.
So if an independent filmmaker made a horror film and they wanted that film to be released on VHS, they could reach out to you guys and you could help them make that happen?
For sure. So, I mean, it depends. We always encourage independent filmmakers to send us their projects, because we're always looking to license and put out stuff on VHS. If we like the film and it makes sense on VHS, and absolutely we would love to do it. But yeah, we absolutely encourage. We have a lot of independent filmmakers like Anthony Moran for Let Us In, and Bobby Knight for Intinction and Mom and Pop, that documentary. We love independent films, and I think that putting it on VHS gives it another way to be seen, and gives it like a collectability, and gives it a certain aesthetic view and experience when you watch it. So, in short, yeah, absolutely, we want to put out more independent horror films and more independent films in general.
For me, watching a movie on a VHS would be very nostalgic, since we didn't have a DVD player for quite a long time. We were still using VHS tapes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different experience, I mean, it is nostalgic for sure. The look of VHS tapes is different. The sounds the VCR makes, there's comfort involved, and I think that's the nostalgia. I think that people dig that. I think it's different for everybody. Why people want to watch VHS tapes. For me, there's just so much content, and I know there's a lot of content on streaming and stuff like that, but VHS has a very specific type of aesthetic and experience that I enjoy. So that's just my preferred method of watching movies, I suppose.
Well, I recall personally being so used to VHS tapes that after watching a DVD, you would instinctively press the rewind button when you didn't have to.
Yeah, right? I mean, it is. It's like a ritual, or it's like a habit, like watching tapes, because that's how we grew up watching movies, right? And I think I just never really left that space. I always, a big part of it is searching for VHS tapes. I love going out into the wild, as we call it, and just, even if you don't find anything, it's just fun to like flip through like old VHS tapes and see what you can find. But I hear you about the instinctual stuff. Honestly, I don't really watch that many discs. I have a Blu-ray player, but it hasn't been plugged in many years. Like sometimes my friends will send me movies on Blu-ray, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And they're like, are you joking? And I'm like, no. Like, I have a Blu-ray player. I don't know where the remote is. Like, it's like that. You know what I mean? Like, I just watch videotapes. So it's kind of funny when I say it out loud, but it's the truth. It's my lifestyle. It's how I like to watch films.
It is a lot of fun, and I remember buying a whole bunch of VHS tapes when a video store was going out of business. They were selling them for like $1, and I was in high school then, we were transitioning from DVDs to streaming, and I just remember having a heck of a time watching the videos that I picked out, and it was really cool, great way to entertain.
Yeah, I agree. Because like you said, they were like $1 or less. Back then, VHS tapes were treated like literal garbage back in the day. Like I would go to like flea markets or something like that, yard sales, and people were just dying to get rid of these tapes. They're 10 cents, a quarter. Please take the whole box for $5. Like they just get this stuff out of my yard, get it off my table. It was a fantastic way to find a bunch of obscure movies, a bunch of obscure content, and it was really cheap. It was a really, I was like a broke 20-something, just like hanging out, and looking for stuff to do on the weekends and at night, and I liked to watch movies, and it was a great way to build my library, and it really just kind of expanded my scope of cinema, like really, like a lot, because I was watching, all kinds of stuff. I still do, but I mean, it was just a great way to expand the movies that you got to see, and it was really cheap, so, which is not the case nowadays, so.
Where did the name Lunchmeat VHS come from? Why Lunchmeat?
Oh, because Ted and I were trying to think of a name, and the magazine or the zine when we first started it was all about reviewing films that weren't on DVD or probably never would make it to DVD or anything like that. Because this was before like Blu-ray really hit and streaming was super popular. So there was a movie called Lunchmeat by Kirk Alex that we reviewed in the first issue. And that we pulled our namesake, in tribute to it. We stylized it as one word. They stylized it as two. I don't really remember if that was on purpose or not, but so it's that's where it comes from. It kind of like exemplified the kind of stuff that we loved. And Ted and I would sit up in the break room and talk about movies and eat lunch meat sandwiches. So we thought it was funny, and so we named it that. We thought it was a cool name.
This would be a good opportunity to talk about another use for a VHS tape. Remember a couple of years ago we had that solar eclipse?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I was working at the radio station, one of my colleagues brought out this videotape from the archives. It was the old overnight tape that actually had music on it that they would play for 6 hours until the morning show host came on. What we did was we took the tape out of the cassette and we put it over the sun so that we could look at the eclipse without hurting our eyes. That's another thing you can do with VHS tapes, another good use for them.
Yo, I did not know that. So you can take the magnetic tape inside of a VHS and put it up to an eclipse and watch it? Like it'll protect your eyes?
Or you could use a welding mask.
Yeah, I knew about the welding mask because my dad was a welder. So I did know about that. But I never thought about using magnetic tape to shield your eyes to watch an eclipse. That's really cool. Did not know that. Learn something every day.
You have to squint, though, because there's only so much room on the tape.
Right, and you don't want to look at the eclipse otherwise. Yeah, it's a little risky, right? So if you want to live life on the edge, I guess you can kind of look through that. That's really cool, though. That's cool info.
Yeah, and you have to be careful not to actually break the tape when you take it out, because if you do, then you're SOL.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I repair a lot of tapes and stuff like that, so I'm very familiar with the tape inside. You're not supposed to touch the tape inside, but if it's an old tape and you're not going to use it, it doesn't matter. So
yes, for all you young listeners out there, it actually says that on the old VHS tapes. It says, "Do not touch the tape inside," but it was probably ignored on more than one occasion. There were all kinds of things that happened to VHS.
Oh, I'm sure.
When watching them, such as the tape getting stuck inside the VCR and having to use surgical precision with pliers to remove it, and then if it snapped, then you had to pay the fee at Blockbuster to get it repaired or to replace it, and that really sucked.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned to all you need is a little piece of Scotch tape, and that'll fix that right up. You just got to cut off the little bit that's kind of crinkled up and just reattach it with Scotch tape. You can do that too. What I learned is when my VCR ate a tape one time, and I couldn't get it out. I didn't want to rip it because it was kind of a valuable tape. So I just took the top off the VCR, and you can do it that way too because it's just kind of tangled up in the machinery in there. So that's another tip if anybody wants to know that you can do. It's cool, and I open up my VCR all the time so I can clean the heads and stuff. So
let's say VHS did make a comeback. What modern day movies do you think should be released on VHS?
Oh, well, that's kind of what we do. We kind of go after, modern VHS or modern movies sometimes because we think that. So we're going to do Skinamarink. So we're happy about that. I think that's a movie that needs to be on tape, It seems like a movie that should be on tape, I think that a lot of the modern horror, obviously, could be on VHS tape. I think anything that lends itself to video aesthetic, right? That makes sense. So, stuff like that. I don't know. What do you think? Do you have movies that you want to see on VHS? Not to turn the question on you, but it's an interesting combo.
As a matter of fact, I do. I think any modern found footage movie, I think, would be awesome to have on VHS. But to be more specific, the movie It from 2017. Because that movie is set in 1989, and I think that putting it on a VHS tape would pay homage to 80s horror films.
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of the vibe that I think works, right, for modern film. And I think any filmmaker that feels experience from, or feels influence or experience, you'd be surprised how many filmmakers want their stuff on VHS. We get hit up a lot about it, so...
I did read an article once about an artist that designs VHS covers for modern films such as The Revenant or Django Unchained, and I had a look at them and I thought they look like they were made in the 80s, and the person that did them is very talented.
Yeah, there's a lot of people doing that right now. I think a lot of people on Instagram and stuff are kind of just taking their graphic talents and creating, VHS artwork for these movies. So I think it's cool. Yeah, it makes sense. People want the nostalgia. People want that sort of thing. I'm not really sure if they're selling it, or it seems like they are, and I don't know if they're really licensing it and stuff, but it's definitely out there.
What goals do you have for your business in the future?
In general, expansion, right? to VH survive, to keep going. It's tough running a small business. We are a very small business. It's just me and basically one or two other guys, three other guys. It's really, man, we just want to expand the publications. We want to write more books about VHS, video store culture, artists inside of it, keep doing the magazine. We want to keep putting awesome movies on VHS so people can experience them on tape. And kind of just continue creating things that get people excited about video culture and video store culture. Just to bring happiness to people that way. One of our logos is VHS is happiness, and we really believe that. When I wake up every day, it's like, what makes me happy is like popping on a tape, and sometimes I'll just pop on a tape and just, do my stuff around the house and everything. Kind of like how people put on music, kind of just background noise, favorite movies, stuff like that. But the goal is just to keep going. The goal is to expand. The goal is to do more exciting things and transform our love and passion for VHS and video store culture into a multitude of products, experiences, live events, just to keep going, man. Every day to wake up and take the inspiration that's in you and to keep doing it, and use that inspiration to make new things and connect with new artists and expand the love and appreciation and the preservation for VHS and video stores.
I know that you've licensed a lot of movies that are copyrighted by others, but have you ever thought about releasing material that's in the public domain?
We have. We actually have released a couple things in the public domain. Undertaker and His Pals is in the public domain, and we released that because that's one of my favorite horror comedies out there. It's a very early pioneering horror comedy. We also did The Sadist, which is in the public domain. It's a black and white 60s horror thriller. Really, really powerful still today. Really cool, pretty violent for the time. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to get a new, or I should say an old used VHS player and maybe watch some of those tapes.
Yeah, they're best watched on CRTVs, the cathode ray tube televisions. I have several in my house because that's really the best way to watch tapes, in my humble opinion. I know. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, get a VCR. Go to your local thrift store, look on Marketplace or something of that nature, and ask your relatives. Honestly, like when people ask me where do you find a VCR, those are usually my top three recommendations. Are to go to a thrift store, look on Marketplace, and or just ask your relatives, like, hey, do you have a VCR hanging around anywhere you don't use? Because most of the time they do. So.
My grandpa has a combo TV and VHS. Those were quite popular in the late 1990s, I recall. And he has a combo VHS DVD player. And he still has a whole bunch of old VHS tapes. Some were taped by my grandma. She would tape some of her old shows, and they were dated 1995, which I thought was really cool.
That is really cool. I love the tape from television stuff. I think that's getting really popular because it preserves the broadcasts, right? And there's a lot of commercials that it preserves because those commercials are so ephemeral. Like they're just, they air for like a month or something and they just disappear. So I think VHS has saved a lot of culture that way, a lot of information. And the TV VCRs, like the combo units, super cool. I have like 4 or 5 of them. They're my favorite because they're kind of portable, You can kind of just take it over to a friend's house or take it camping or whatever you want to do, and kind of just like do that. And it's just really cool. Those are getting expensive too because, again, every day that goes by, these things get older and harder to find.
Well, Josh, I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I look forward to seeing what happens with Lunchmeat VHS in the future.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And that was Editor-in-Chief of Lunchmeat VHS, Josh Schafer. Don't forget, if you're an independent filmmaker and you'd like to have your horror film distributed on VHS, go to lunchmeatvhs.com and contact Josh. And while you're there, be sure to check out their store to find some cool merchandise. Until next time, here at The Medley, we're all kinds of different.